Welcome to Building Better Relationships with Chuck and Barb Lewis, equipping listeners and viewers with the biblical tools to conquer the difficulties faced in this life. Chuck has practiced crisis intervention since the 1980s and has been in ministry together with his wife Barb for over 20 years. They've taken the countless lessons and the knowledge they've acquired and have put them into this life skills class to share with you. We hope this blesses you.
Well, hello again. I'm Pastor Chuck Lewis. This is my wife.
I'm Barbara.
And we're excited to be with you again for another Building Better Relationships with Chuck and Barbara Lewis. And we ask you to hit the like, subscribe, and share button because that helps us on our channel. So today we're going to be talking about a topic of...
Today we're going to talk about boundaries.
Boundaries. Oh my goodness, boundaries. Some of you are probably thinking, what in the world is a boundary? Well, you know, when I think about a boundary, I think about the property line around my house,
Right.
or our house.
Yeah.
And because it's our house, it's not just my house. And you know, if I go 20 feet over on my neighbor's side and I start digging up his yard and he comes out and says, "What are you doing?" Well, I'm putting in a rock garden. And that's just fine, but now I'm 20 feet over on his side.
Yeah.
So as long as I stay within my boundaries, it's fine what I put on my side.
Mm-hmm.
But if I violate his side, I'm going to hear from him.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, I think there's legal consequences for encroaching on someone else's property.
Well, and we're living in a world where it's like boundaries are not something that people even think about. It's like if I want something, I'll just do it, and I don't care about your boundaries. But in order to have a functional relationship, you've got to have boundaries. And I had to learn about boundaries, you know, later on as I got older because I wasn't really raised around boundaries.
Right.
And so that was a brand new concept for me.
Right. So boundaries, I've heard it referred to as a hula hoop. I'm only responsible for what's within my hula hoop.
Yeah.
But boundaries defined what is our responsibility and what is not. What is someone else's responsibility? Mm-hmm. What's in my control and what is not in my control.
Right.
So it tells me where I end and someone else begins.
Yes. That's right.
So why don't we talk about how to discover our boundaries?
Yeah, well, that's a good point because whenever there's any kind of violation that you feel, that's usually an indication that a boundary's been crossed.
Yes.
And we can violate our own boundaries and we can have other people violate our boundaries as well.
Yes.
So let's give some examples of violating your own boundaries. Maybe not getting enough sleep would be a violation of a boundary.
So not doing self-care.
Self-care, drinking enough water. I have to put on my phone to drink water because at my age, I don't get thirsty anymore, which is kind of bizarre because I think, why don't I get thirsty? I used to get thirsty all the time, but now I don't, so I have to put reminders on my phone to drink water so that I don't violate my boundaries.
Right.
If I don't drink water, I can pass out. I can literally pass out.
And you have before from not doing that.
Of dehydration, and I didn't know that dehydration could cause a person to pass out until that happened.
Right. So taking care of ourselves, like you said, is one. Taking responsibility for your own finances.
Yes.
You know, going to work on time, doing the work that you've been assigned to do and not expecting other people to do it.
Right.
But also not taking responsibility for what they're supposed to be doing too.
Absolutely.
You know, unless it's a special circumstance where you have a sick coworker and you have to fill in for them or something. But
yeah, I mean, you know, I've had people say when I've identified boundaries, well, that's a stupid boundary. And I've said, well, you know, it doesn't sound like that's something you're going to practice because you obviously don't like it. But that's my boundary. I own that.
yeah.
See? And the nice thing is you don't need other people's approval to have boundaries in your life. If you wait for other people's approval, you probably never will have them.
Right. So boundaries are to take care of ourselves.
Yes.
They're not to get other people's approval. But we would like other people to approve our boundaries, and sometimes people pleasing can cause us to lay down our boundaries or let people violate our boundaries because we're afraid of their disapproval.
Right, absolutely. I've got to have their approval. I mean, what a world that would be if we drew a boundary and everybody said, well, that really makes sense. And thank you for letting me know about that boundary. And I'm glad you're taking care of yourself, that kind of thing. What a world that would be. But unfortunately, it's not that way. But you can still have good boundaries even if people don't agree with them.
That's true. That's true, because it's about what we need, and everyone's boundaries don't need to be the same.
That's right. Everybody's boundaries are different.
You know, I remember being at work and having a coworker come and get things out of my desk, and that just upset me so much.
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand why until I learned about boundaries.
Yeah.
And I realized that that was a boundary violation, that person should have asked me for what they needed and could they borrow it or whatever.
Yes.
So they were violating my boundary, and I knew it bothered me, but I didn't really understand why.
So the result of a boundary being violated is usually anger.
Yes, and resentment.
So when anger and resentment happens, then you can look deeper to say what boundary has just been crossed, either from myself or from somebody else.
Right.
And, you know, the guys that wrote the boundary book, Townsend and Dr. Townsend.
Cloud and Townsend.
Cloud.
Yeah.
They said people that have boundaries are the least angry people of all people.
Yes, that's significant.
That is very significant. And you think, well, why is that? Well, that's because there's not as much violation happening.
Right.
And that's, you know, when you don't violate or be violated, there's nothing really to get angry about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, so that, just like you said, is a good point. Whenever you feel angry or resentful and you look at why, possibly someone has violated your boundary or you've violated your own boundary.
Sure.
You know, not going to bed on time, booking yourself up too much, not giving yourself enough time. Like, somebody could have a boundary of when they come home from work, they need about 15 minutes to decompress.
Very good point.
And so you can say, well, I don't need that, so you shouldn't need that.
Right.
We need to talk to you right now.
Yeah, somebody has to do all the work around here. Might as well be me, type thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you can say, I understand. We can choose to honor that boundary by saying, I understand from what you're saying that you need some time to decompress after work.
Right.
So I'm going to leave you alone, let you have your time when you're ready to join the family. Come and get us or whatever.
Yeah.
But we can respect that person's boundary.
Right.
But you know, their boundary needs to be communicated.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I know I've heard that we will either have our boundaries overtly or covertly.
Uh-huh.
So
Describe what that means.
well, an overt boundary means I tell you what my boundary is.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm telling you I need some time when I get home from work
Right.
to relax, and then I can join the family. And a covert boundary would be I come home and people start talking to me right away, and I just start reacting and getting angry and upset because I haven't said what my boundary is.
Right.
So a covert way is I'm doing it underhandedly, and I might do something passive aggressive to get back at you for violating my boundary, but I didn't tell you what the boundary was.
Right.
Because I didn't tell you because I was afraid I would have conflict.
Yes.
Or that you wouldn't approve of me or whatever.
It. Yeah.
So I'm doing it in an underhanded way.
See, a functional living is when we don't understand why somebody needs a certain boundary, but we honor that. See, boundary busters do not honor boundaries. They just think boundaries are crazy and they'll do exactly what they want to do. I spoke at a meeting one time where this lady literally had a sign around her neck, and the sign said, "Please don't hug me. I don't like to be touched." Well, I talked to her after at the end of the meeting, and I completely honored that sign that she had around her neck. Didn't say a word about it. I didn't ask her, why would you have a sign around your neck that said that? I didn't ask her one thing about it. We just talked about other things, and the more we talked, the safer she began to feel with me, and to where at the end of our conversation, she said to me, "Can I give you a hug?" And I looked at her sign and I said, "Are you sure you want to?" And she said, "Yes, I feel safe with you and I want to give you a hug." Well, then, I let her hug me. But I completely honored that sign that she had around her neck, and I didn't have to quiz her on that. I didn't have to try to find out why she was wearing it. That really was none of my business at that point.
Right.
If she wanted to share with me why she had that sign, and I found out later why she had it, but I had to develop safety with her enough for her to become vulnerable with me to share why she had that. And the reason why she had it is because she had been hurt and violated by so many people
Right.
that she was afraid to be touched by anybody else. So I'm not sure how long she wore that, and I don't know if she still does. But safety was the key to allow her the freedom to hug me.
And that was such a good point that you said a little bit ago, is that you didn't have to understand, or you didn't really know what the story was, why she had that boundary.
Right.
But you chose to honor it anyway.
See, I learned years ago when I was a victim advocate for the police department, I learned not to ask people why they did certain things or why they had to feel the way they felt. The why is really none of our business at that point. It's just developing safety with them, and then if they want to share why they're doing certain things or feeling certain ways, then they can. But safety is so important.
Yes, it is. And boundaries can be changed. You can have a boundary and then to make a choice to lay it down for some reason. But I know when I first started learning about boundaries, I didn't really have any. I would work until I was so tired I would practically pass out in the kitchen.
Yeah, I remember.
And yes, I remember that happening when we were just dating. But I couldn't say no to people. Whenever people would ask me to do something, I would just say yes, but then I would feel resentful. In fact, I remember you saying to me one time, "Barbara, your no comes out maybe."
Yeah.
Because it was really hard for me to say no to people because I wanted their approval so bad.
Sure, yeah.
So sometimes there's inner conflict of why we don't have boundaries.
Totally. And that's a reason why we don't say no. Is because we're afraid of that conflict. And sometimes we beat ourselves up if we say no.
Yeah.
And because we're feeling like we disappointed somebody. But the more you're really aware of when you need to say no and when you need to say yes, you'll find yourself living in a lot more freedom.
Yes. I remember a boundary that you and I had to develop together. You had started a really stressful job, and you needed to talk about it a lot at night. And so we'd end up talking half the night about what was going on at your new job.
Yeah.
And finally, and I was working 5 days a week.
Right.
So I remember saying...
This was years ago.
Yes. I remember saying to you, I can be up at night 2 nights a week, but not 3. So my boundary was I can stay up and talk to you 2 nights, but I can't do it 3 nights.
Yeah, I can't stay up all night, every night. Yeah. Well, and see, I was violating your boundary because I needed to talk. And what I learned was just because I have a need to talk doesn't mean that you have a need to talk. You needed to sleep. So I needed to honor your boundary of sleep.
Or we could do it at a more reasonable time.
Yeah, right.
And another boundary I remember having is we learned to not try to talk through issues on my lunch hour, because if the conversation got upsetting or whatever, it was really hard to go back to work and not be able to get to resolution. So we decided, let's just not start these conversations during a lunch hour.
Sure.
But I want to share some examples of things. You can say to somebody, stop yelling at me. Or after you've learned about boundaries, you can say, you can continue to yell if you choose to, but I will choose not to be in your presence when you act that way.
Right.
So I will talk to you if you can talk to me with respect and kindness. So that's your boundary, is you're not going to allow someone to talk to you disrespectfully. So I knew of another person that would bail out their kids when they ran up credit card debts.
Yep.
So he thought that was okay. So he bailed his son out of all of his credit card debt once, and his son ran up all the debts again, and he paid off his son's debts again.
Yeah.
So because his son wasn't having to experience the consequences of his actions, he did it a third time. Well, on the third time, the parent got wise and decided he needed to not, his boundary was going to be that I'm not paying off your credit card debt then.
Right.
He let his son experience the consequences of his own behavior.
Sure.
So another one is you can plead with somebody, please quit drinking. You're ruining our family. Please listen, just quit drinking. Or you can say to them, you may choose to not deal with your drinking if you want, but I will not continue to expose myself and the kids to the chaos. The next time you're drunk, we will go to the Wilsons for the night and we'll tell them why they're there. Your drinking is your choice, but what I will put up with is my choice.
Right, exactly. Boy, and that really makes a lot of people mad.
Yeah.
That person would draw that kind of boundary.
Yes. And I think another really important boundary, a good way of seeing if someone is a boundary observer, is whether or not they can hear your no. And so I think in a dating relationship or any kind of a relationship, if that person cannot hear your no, that is a red flag, because they need to be able to respect your boundaries.
Right.
And that no is a complete sentence.
No is a complete sentence. That's right. You don't have to convince somebody that your no is legitimate.
Right.
You just need to say no and then walk away. Because if you stay around after you say no, sometimes that can lead to a lot of conflict, because that person that hears the no that don't want to hear no, they can really get into that with you, try to convince you that your no needs to be okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So just say the no, and we have to practice the no muscle.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a no muscle that's really weak, and when we say yes, when we mean no, you're going to get angry at yourself, and you're going to maybe take it out on yourself too.
Right.
Yeah. So practice saying no, and you don't have to get aggressive at it. You don't have to scream it at the person. You just say, well, thank you for asking, but no, I'm not going to be able to do that. Period.
Right. Yeah.
Well, why not? Well, I'm sorry. I just can't do that, and I don't have the time to do that. But thanks for asking. And you have to stay with your guns. Don't just give in and say, oh, okay, I guess I'll do that, because then you're going to be violating your own boundary, and when you do that, you're going to be angry at yourself. So these boundaries take work. They take practice, and sometimes setting boundaries can feel so overwhelming to people that they think, oh man, I don't even know where to start, so I'm not going to start at all.
Yeah.
Well, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. So you make the first step, and then you make another step, and the more you practice, the better you get, and you'll get to a point where you'll know that you don't have to have other people's approval. You can say yes when you need to say yes, and no when you need to say no, and you're going to feel very good about your decision making, even when you don't have their approval. So we want to really encourage you today to practice this. You know, Barb, every one of these things that we teach, we practice, don't we?
Yes.
And we have to keep practicing.
Yes.
It's not like you get to a point where you've got it and you never have to practice again.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, practice doesn't make you perfect. It makes you better. So I like to just leave out perfect out of my vocabulary, because we'll never be perfect till we get to heaven. But the more you practice, the better you get.
Right.
Well, our time is gone again today. It goes by so fast. But we want to encourage you to write down your comments if you want to get on our website and leave your comments under prayer request. We can pray for you if we know what your needs are. And also there's a place there on our website that if you want to donate to this ministry, you can donate by hitting the donate button. We'd appreciate that so much. And we also want to encourage you to press like, subscribe, and share. And we will look forward to seeing you next time. God bless you today.
If you are blessed by this ministry, please subscribe, like, and share. You can also make donations at chucklewisministries.com. Join us to keep uncovering the tools to build better relationships together. Let's do this again next week.